Ezeani was a wicked native doctor in the land of Omon. People never knew how wicked he was until his sins found him out. Once upon a time, in the land of Omon, lived a wicked native doctor called Ezeani. He celebrated with his fellow wicked evil men. They wear red, and on the red gown, a skeleton is drawn. They perform parties and occasions. To the villagers, they kept wondering what sort of group could this be. There was something strange about them, but no one could point out what it was. They looked irksome, scary to an extent, but yet they were all rich. They spread monies among themselves. No one there came to pick the money, apart from their members. If any of their member was to have an event, they all gathered wearing red and white and would spray the member monies. Among them, you can find some young men, some doing businesses in faraway lands. Some didn't even know where these their members came from. But one thing was certain. Whenever Ezeani was having an event, you will see these men gathered, celebrate with him. It all looked somehow. The villagers feared and respected Ezeani, not really because they liked him, but because they were scared of him. He gave out monies sometimes to some people. People go to see him for medicines. So they said. Many never went, but you could hear one or two say the man is a strong native doctor, that people come from far to visit him in his shrine. He owned a big mansion in the village. He owned two mansions, one where he stayed with his family and the other where he uses to practice his works in the middle of the forest, in the bush, in the village. Omom was a quiet town with many of their indigenes and people, citizens, having traveled out to look for greener pastures. But Ezeani was in the village, basking in the seeming wealth of his trade. Many assuming that it was earned from a legitimate means. Nobody knew that Ezeani was an evil skull miner, a very evil, wicked man who killed people to become rich, who dealt in nefarious, shameful, appalling, disgusting businesses, until one day when luck ran out of him. That was the day Okoro, an old man, took his young daughter to the farm to harvest yams. As they were in the farm harvesting yams, two men on a bicycle, they call it Okada, came close by and said, "Papa, please give us your cutlass. Let us use it and remove something from our bike. It is tangled." The innocent old man said, "Oh, my children, you must have come from a far place. Okay, you can have it." Being very innocent, he gave them the cutlass. And as they stepped down and collected the cutlass from him, they disarmed him. They tied him up and kept him on the floor and grabbed the little girl. Before the little girl could say anything, They told her to shut up. They carried the little girl, tied the old man, dropped him in the bush in his farm, took the little girl to a hole they had already dug in the bush and dumped her there, having tied her hands and her legs. So it was. Lucky for the little girl, the vigilante people were moving that evening, and one of them had sticks that they had cut for him to use for his building. So he went with some of his men to go and get the sticks in the bush. Looked like God arranged it for the little girl to be saved, and Ezeani's luck ran out of him. And so it was that they went. I mean, the vigilante head and his boys went in the bush to get the woods that they have cut for him to pack. And so, while the vigilante and his men were moving to the bush, they heard the cry of a little girl calling out for help. Meanwhile, the two criminals that tied the little girl and dumped her in the pit and tied up the old man were men sent by Ezeani to fetch heads for him. For Ezeani was a notorious evil ritualist who killed for his nefarious businesses. These men worked for him. He had requested for a little girl's head, and so they went in the bush and got that little girl. It was discovered later that that was their usual practice, that some of the men who partied with him, who were in his clubs, were people he had actually worked for, or people in the same evil club. I mean, ritual clubs where they killed and sacrificed human beings for whatever reasons. And on that day, one of them, a businessman who claimed to be a Christian, who sold and did business in a big market, well known, thought to be gentle and nice, left his town where he did his business to go to Ezeani, the great evil native doctor, to renew his charms. He sought for a human head to use, that of a little girl, and that was when he sent these men to catch this little girl and take the girl to Ezeani for his rituals. And so it was. When they had caught the girl and dumped her in the pit, they went to Ezeani to meet him, to tell him that they had gotten two people, an old man and a girl. Of course, Ezeani told them he didn't want the old man, but the girl, and that they would go in the night and bring her to Ezeani in his evil mansion native doctor house. So that evening, not known to them that the good vigilante chief had already seen the girl with his men and had rescued the girl from the pit and had set traps, men, to monitor the pit to see if those evil men will come for the girl, and if they do, catch them and deal with them. True to their thinking, the Ezeani and his men came to the pit in the night to pick the girl up. When they got there, they discovered that the pit was empty. The vigilante caught them and took them to the village square. And so, when they took them to the village square, they confessed, after interrogation and serious beating, that it was Ezeani that sent them. The villagers marched to Ezeani's house. Ezeani was nowhere to be found. He had heard rumors that they had caught his men, and that was how he fled the village, him and his wife. The villagers went to his house in the village, the mansion in the forest, destroyed everything. There they saw gory things. So many people that the man had killed, more than 500. So many skulls, skeletons, people's shoes, clothes. It was a terrible sight to behold. The news went viral. Bloggers caught it. The social media caught it. And so it was that when Ezeani fled, he made contact with one or two of his trusted allies, and they advised him to run. And he ran, disguising like a businessman, trying to cross the border. But as God will have it, a gallant officer, Jonathan, was on duty and was already on the alert. He came from that region where the crime came from. So it was more personal to him. It was just by luck that he saw two men on a bike riding across, wanting to cross the border without following protocols. He stopped them, but they refused to stop. He entered a bike and chased after them. On catching them in the next border junction, he interrogated them. And as he was interrogating one, the one with the face cap, he discovered that it was the notorious criminal, evil native doctor, Ezeani. He lied to the gallant officer and said, "I'm just a businessman. I want to go and buy my goods. Don't delay me." But the gallant officer took him back to his post, to their office, and on further interrogation and inquiry, discovered that it was the same person who had killed many people and is wanted in the country. That was how he was arrested. And the people were informed that the gallant officer, Jonathan, has apprehended the criminal as he was trying to flee the country. And that was how the story went. The people began to fish out other people that were in Ezeani's cult, especially those ones that danced and partied with him, and those ones that wore red, the colors that Ezeani used during his celebrations. Those is club members. Now, if you've watched this far, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. So many people have found to be incriminating, such that some claim to be native doctors, yet they do other things. Others claim to be, in quote, men of God, but they are really not God's servants. It calls one to be it causes one to be careful and vigilant, not trusting anybody, for even some people that you think are calm, good, might be hiding something evil. And so ends my story today. Watch more of my interesting stories in my channel at African Tale. Thank you.